What is up, guys? It's your boy GRC. We are live every day, 11 a.m. Eastern, crypto in the morning. And this is probably the best crypto show in the world at this point, maybe top three. So I thought it'd be more difficult, but the amount of intellectual, I don't even know what to call it, like just don't care. I'm just going to say things on the internet because I have money. Like that's pretty much what it, or like because I have stake in an asset, or if I have a certain belief, like I'm just going to say that one belief over and over again. But I don't agree with that, and I never have. I've always been more so interested in what's actually going to occur and how we can take advantage and how we can benefit the community. This is all Metcalfe's Law 101 shit. Even from like, that's what people need to learn. This is about more users. Everyone's like, GRC's pumping his bags. I don't give a shit, dude. Who cares? What am I going to do? But I can help a lot, but I can't. If I dump all my shit, it doesn't do anything, but I can help a lot on the upside. So why don't we just be helpful and learn and not be biased and not say things on the internet that are beneficial to you, but kind of counter beneficial to the people that are a little less nuanced in what you're talking about. Let's just try to be helpful. At this point, we are so early. And the guys here, everyone that's going to be in this chat today is not worried about one fucking asset going to zero or whatever y'all are worried about. Yeah, maybe it would affect their net worth, but it's important to understand we're all here. We just had a conversation for an hour about technology only. None of us mentioned once how we're going to get rich on this shit. Like, it's never been about that. Richard taught us that a long time ago. A lot, and Frosty and Jesse have been making money in crypto for a fucking long time. And Frosty's here today, and I'm really happy. Just Ask Jesse's here today. My co-host Sam Stolt in the house as usual. We're going to be having basically a community discussion on proof of work versus proof of stake, security, user friendliness. And I want to know, all we wanted was cheap fees. All we wanted was user friendly. All we wanted was adoption. Did we already get it? Is it possible to scale on these other chains? Because I feel like for the first time in my life, I'm actually using cryptocurrency. I feel like I'm using it. I feel like I'm not paying a lot of gas fees. I feel like I'm benefiting from it. And I'm not saying even money-wise. I feel like it's an amazing experience. I'm like, this is crypto. This is trading Bitcoin for 50 cents. This is good. This is cool. This is great. And I feel like I've been experiencing that for the first time right now. Like I literally feel like this is the first time in crypto. So I'm getting excited because I'm thinking in my head, man, maybe this is how it works. It's all about community consensus. It's all about Metcalfe's Law. It's all about adding users. But a lot of guys with a lot of money and a lot of assets, they don't really care because it's just a big LP liquidity pool for them to dump out of whenever they want. And if they do it slowly, nobody will notice. Okay, so I want the future to be Hex. I want the future to be Pulsechain. I want the future to be Ethereum. I want it to be cheap transaction fees. But I'm not going to not pay attention to the things that are available on an open source blockchain. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's a little weird. It's like ETF just got put on CoinGecko. So CoinGecko, that's a big one, I think. And I don't know I'm not huge on the listing sites because I don't really care, but that's cool. I think that's great. The native asset over there, low liquidity, really cheap fees, really fun experience over there. I'm really, really bullish on that ETF. And I'm saying that not because I bought some, it's because it's cheap and I can do it. And remember, Richard told everyone, this is what the users want: cheap transactions, fluidness, all open dexes, LP pools, blah, blah, blah. I'm doing it. It's exciting, guys. Crypto in the morning. I'm going to drop the link one more time. Please retweet. Let's get it going. Crypto. And we're also going to be looking at the Hex end staking. The last 20 minutes, we're going to do Hex end staking patterns for the next until the end of the year. So, and guys, don't be surprised for a third quarter rally in crypto. This is just a GRC thing. I haven't mentioned this to anyone, but I could feel a little third quarter rally, but we all know it's a fake rally. Let's be 100% clear on that, guys. Crypto in the morning.
You already know what time it is. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. 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 Waiting on phone. Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning. Smoking a blunt on my way to the gym. 11 a.m. and I'm already tuned in. Got me some hacks and I'm making a stay. Got me some heads on, I'm making it rain. Pay me some maxi and that's just in case. GymRatCrypto sent me to show you the way. Crypto in the morning. 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 Crypto in the morning.
Good morning, brother. How you doing? It's exciting.
I'm doing good, man.
I'm exciting time to be in crypto, right? With so much happening. And this is before Pulse launches. So many interesting conversations going on, like what's going on with POS, what's going on with POW. I think POS has been focusing primarily on scalability. If you look at I think it's the trilemma or the three pieces in crypto that are security, decentralization, and maybe scalability or something very similar to that. POS has been focusing on the scalability piece. And if you look at those three levers that you pull, and if you focus on just one, the other two kind of go by the wayside a little bit. So I'm excited to talk to Just Ask Jesse and Frosty. Frosty has been in the house in quite a while and hear what their thoughts are on those things, because you have these trade-offs, right? You could create potentially more, laying the framework to be more scalable, but then you're giving up decentralization and some security pieces of it.
Yeah, but if there's 10 of these, what is centralization? That's where I'm at. It's like, okay,
you mean flipping back and forth?
There's going to be ETH proof of work. There's going to be ETH proof of stake. There's going to be ETH. Okay.
Then there'll be 14 more.
Exactly. So it's like, this is why this is open source shit. This is why Ethereum is better than Bitcoin. This is why people want to build on Ethereum, but they don't build on Bitcoin, because you can't build on Bitcoin for scalability. You cannot. It does not work. They are not supporting it. It's not friendly for that. Vitalik created this for this purpose. And then when they use it for the purpose, it's like, oh no, hold on one sec. There's too many options. You're like, boy, this is what you asked for. This is what adoption looks like. People they scream adoption for Hex, but they don't want more people. They just want more money. And that's because they're wrecked. In life wrecked, not like US dollar, per overhead wrecked. There's some dudes that could go to zero right now and they would be back in the mix in a month. In a month. And there's guys that would say, no, my life's over forever. My Hex is gone forever. And then my buddies, they would be hustling the moment it happened. They wouldn't even be talking about it. So I'm going to bring Just Ask Jesse, Frosty on. We're going to have a discussion about proof of work versus proof of stake, the new chains that are coming out. It's just a discussion, guys. If you think we're all pumping our own fucking bags, you can absolutely put in your, okay? And I didn't say any other words, so it doesn't matter.
Woo, 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 woo. Who we got in the house? Frosty, how you doing? Jesse, how are you?
Yo,
gentlemen.
good, thanks.
Good to see you guys.
There's a little bit of fan noise, and I don't know if it's annoying. If it's annoying to other people, that would be more concerning to me, but it's not really annoying to me. So just let me know in the chat, guys. If any of the background noise, we'll handle it if it's any of it bad. But how are you guys doing today? Frosty, Just Ask Jesse, great to have you in the house.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hope you're feeling better. I know you had some stuff going on in your personal life a couple months ago, so I'm glad to see you here, sir. I know that must have been a struggle for a period of time while you went through some stuff, so I'm glad you're here. Good to see you.
Yeah, thank you. I much appreciate it.
So we all know what's going on, right? Busy fucking time in crypto. Cool time in crypto. What about I started with the trilemma, and I don't know if I have those three pieces down, like scalability, decentralization, and security. POS seems to be, from my point of view, and you and Jesse both have more experience in this than I do. It appears that they're focusing towards that piece, towards the scalability. From my understanding, that lowers security, or has a trade-off to security and has a trade-off with decentralization. Now, is that necessarily like, is that going to be a horrible thing, or is that just, hey, for this moment in history, 2022, 2023, we're focusing on scalability, which, as GRC was mentioning, Metcalfe's law, right? We're increasing the number of nodes or users in the network, and after we get to some point where the scale has tipped, right, then we shift back and we focus on increasing security and increasing decentralization. I'd like to hear, Frosty, if you want to jump in first, hear what your thoughts are on this, and then I would like to hear what Jesse has to say.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, I think the fork has been good to keep the proof of work networks. And anybody that really thought that the proof of networks were going to go away and mining was going to go away clearly don't understand the economics behind it, because there's billions of dollars that are in that ecosystem, from GPU mining, ASIC manufacturers, all of that. And for some reason, people just thought, well, that's just all that billions of dollars, and those people that have set up factories are just going to mysteriously disappear and walk away because Vitalik wants to go to a proof of work system. Like, that's not the way the economy works, my friend. Like, you don't think they're going to fight to keep those billions of dollars online, to keep those manufacturing, to keep those, like, you're crazy. Like, you don't have any idea that when mining came out and they started using GPU mining, the sales for GPUs tripled in price. And you don't think the GPU manufacturers realized that's where the majority of their sales were going? And all that's just going to disappear because people have this fictitious notion of it's destroying the environment and it uses ridiculous amounts of hydro. If you actually peel back the layers of that onion, like, it uses less hydro in the mining community than fucking Christmas lights every year. You know what I mean? So it's okay for people to turn their Christmas lights on, and that's normal, but they have a big problem with mining. Okay, well, the reality is that's not going anywhere, and those billions of dollars are just going to ebb and flow somewhere else into something else, and that's what this is. So there's no doubt in my mind the proof of work network will stay strong. It's just going to take a little time to gain new adoption and people to change and move. And I know they've de-incentivized the mining with the new EIP to have less rewards per block. But there's ways around that, and they're already working on ways around that, you know what I mean, to make it incentivized for the miners to come back and mine. So the whole ecosystem is not going anywhere. And as you alluded to before, you're 100% correct in my opinion. The difference between proof of stake and proof of work is a trade-off. It is 100% a trade-off. It's a trade-off between security and efficiency. Yeah, you're going to, and to me, I prefer, in my own personal opinion, to support a proof of work network because it is decentralized. It's more in control of the people. Anybody in this room or chat or listening to this stream can spool up a node and they can spool up a fucking miner, right? And they could be part of the ecosystem. So unless you have $100,000 and some good UPS and some other stuff, and they actually allow you, here's the big thing, they allow you to become part of the consensus network on the proof of stake, because they say it's available for anybody to do with the right amount of money. But the reality is, when you actually try to do that, even if you did put up the capital, they can still force you out with a consensus mechanism. With a
decentralized AF.
Right. So for me, from a risk reward point of view, I got into crypto personally to be decentralized and not be part of a centralized entity. This is the part of the words I don't understand come out of people's mouth, in my opinion, because they're like, yes, we want to be decentralized, we want our own autonomy, we want our own thing. But then on the second side, they're like, yeah, proof of stake. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense, because that's the complete opposite of you have a double edge. It doesn't make sense to me.
So in your opinion, Frosty, you actually believe, and this is just, people don't think this because they just go with Vitalik, and sometimes I do too, you know, sometimes it's hard not to, but you've been in the game for a long time and you're a miner. Like that's what you have been doing for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. So you think proof of work is less secure? I mean, is more secure than proof of stake?
See, absolutely is. Because there's nobody they can say whatever they want. The proof of work is absolutely more secure. And I listen to this bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, oh well, there's hardly any hash rate on there, so it could be 51% attacked. Okay, so you're just gonna have a chain reorg. Okay, Ethereum Classic, and I was part of that. They got 51% attacked 3 times. Where's the chain? It's still here. It's still running. Nothing's changed. They had a couple chain reorgs. And yeah, we were learning some lessons going through that, and the software that's been developed to recognize chain reorgs very rapidly now is very efficient. So they can recognize a chain reorg before the network even realizes they have a chain reorg. So, and they basically stop the reorg and they continue back on. So that whole narrative is, oh, we're going to have a 51% attack, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's many chains that had 51% attacks, and they're still here today, and they're still functioning. So that whole double spend fucking 51% attack narrative is bullshit, because we've been through it. We've gone through it. It's happened, and the chains are still existing, and the sky did not fall. So is it a risk? Sure, it's a risk. But is it as detrimental risk as people seem to think it is? No.
I agree. I think in 2020 there was a classic Ethereum Classic. If I remember, in 2020 at some point there was a 51% attack. Jesse, you've been listening, right? We've got these 3 pieces: decentralization, security, and scalability, and we have POS and POW. Can I get your thoughts on what we're chatting about?
So I'm not a miner. I don't have the most expertise on this stuff, but a lot of the same risks that apply on a proof of work also apply on a proof of stake, right? So the people who do say things like, oh, it can be 51% attacked. Well, a proof of stake could also be 51% attacked. You just have to have enough money or enough delegators giving you their money so that you run the majority of all the validators. The same exact risk applies. So, like, it's just a weird narrative. When people say, proof of work sucks, it hurts the environment, it can be 51% attack. They just start spouting off all this ridiculous stuff. And when you start peeling back the layers, you realize, well, that's not exactly true. And even if it was true, the same things also apply over here. The difference being, look, anybody who can afford a miner is able to run consensus for a proof of work. Anybody can do it. A guy with a couple $1,000 and a GPU miner is able to help secure the network. That's impossible on a proof of stake. Okay? You could argue that the big businesses who are able to afford lots and lots of miners, they control a big portion of all the consensus of a proof of work. But again, that's the exact same risk that applies over at a proof of stake. But the small guys are not able to participate on a proof of stake. So I would lean towards proof of work being more secure. But there's another angle to this. The everyday user doesn't care, right? 99.999% of people who get into crypto have no idea what a miner is, what it does, how to validate. All day, like, it's hard enough for them to wrap their head around what a MetaMask wallet is and how to put the settings in so they can get some coins and start swapping them. They could care less about the consensus mechanism behind the scenes that makes any of that work. They just want to swap coins, right? So the most important thing.
What are they going to decide?
Right. Well, hold on. The most important thing to any blockchain is ease of use. Being able to get people in and make it a seamless, like, pleasurable experience. Okay. And on Ethereum, which is a proof of stake right now, it kind of sucks. It's super expensive. It's still kind of slow. I mean, there's alternatives, but now we have these proof of work blockchains. Kind of weird, right? It's really, they're really fast. They're super duper cheap. And that's what the masses care about.
Let's take one quick break. We have a video to show.
Well, we were supposed to show this at the beginning, so we'll show it now.
We were supposed to show this. I totally forgot about it. It's a clip from I was live streaming Richard Hart clips yesterday, and we snagged one. And yes, Richard wasn't 100% right at this time, and no one could have been, because how can you possibly understand that there's going to be 3 forks out and on the exact date years ago? That would not make very much sense. None of us knew about Ethereum Fair a year and a half ago. So, these things do change, but it's important to understand the dynamic that we're kind of trying to show you with these layer ones as they become available is kind of what we're trying to show you. So let's get into that.
What happens when Ether launches cheap transactions in June 2022 with proof of work? I don't know what you're talking about. I assume you mean Ethereum 2.0, and I assume you mean proof of stake instead of proof of work.
So he kind of alludes to right there, like the guy said, what happens when proof of work comes out in 2022 and then there's cheap transactions? Frosty, you hear my man's Richard saying that, and then he said right away, are you talking about proof of stake? Maybe the guy was talking about proof of stake, but maybe he was talking about the future where there's a proof of work chain as well. Did you, Frosty, kind of know in your head somewhere that there would be this option as well, being that you are a miner?
What's to say, when I came out months ago trying to warn people to how they take control of the network, and they were talking about security and everything else, let's just say that's why I was trying to promote the node network and get that distributed before this happened. Because if we look at what's happening with the regulatory system, that they're trying to regulatory it, let's just say I tried to promote that months ahead of time.
100%. You definitely did that. We were talking about this 4 months ago or something like that.
So Rich,
so now they're all complaining. Okay. They're on there and they're like, oh my God, we're going to be regulated. There's a possibility that they could regulate and make this a security. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what I said 4 or 5 months ago when I tried to let everybody know the way around this, and they all thought I was crazy and it wasn't necessary and it wasn't going to happen. But if they do regulate it, and there's a high probability that they will ram that through in some other bill that nobody fucking reads in a 10,000 page document somewhere along the line, even if it gets rejected this time, they'll just sneak it into another one. They're all going to piss and moan real quick when all their tokens, now all of a sudden you have to be an accredited investor where you have to have, give background checks, minimum $100,000, fucking whatever. You know what I mean? How happy are you going to be then? Right? So when people talk at both sides of their mouth and they ask for the things, but it's generally when they ask for the things and they get them, they're not very happy when they do get what they want. Right? So
that's what it seems like.
Well, on this piece, right? So one of the things that like mainstream, and I'm saying mainstream media, and I think everybody knows that like mainstream media is just bumbling idiots, right? And they don't actually try to present the truth in anything that they say. But there's a idea that is always the first thing that's put forth around POS, that it is related to the fucking environment, the ESG argument, right? Can we talk about that? Because I think that is misunderstood. That I think people, I don't believe this is why POS is happening at all. I don't think even slightly why this is. But can Jesse or Frosty, like, what are your thoughts on that piece of it? Because they're like, oh, environmental impact from mining goes down by 95%, 99%. But at the same time, and Frosty is a person who mines, so I put myself in that, and please correct me if I'm wrong about anything here. So I put myself as a business owner, and I'm like, okay, If I'm mining, I'm a business owner. What is my incentive to do? To run them as efficiently as possible. To also figure out, maybe I can put batteries, maybe I can put solar, and maybe that shit pays off in 3 months. Maybe it pays off in 12 months, and then it's effectively just printing me free money, right? And I just don't see that as a super great argument for the electricity piece of things. Although, a lot of people are very politically sensitive to that shit or whatever.
And just to be fair, it has all gone directly down and to the right, or down, just straight fucking down since all this stuff has come out as far as energy production. So, I mean, there really is a separation anyway, so to a degree, but I want to hear their point, obviously.
Go ahead, Jesse. What do you think, my friend?
Well, I think the world is trying, through various regulations to make energy more and more and more efficient over time. A while back, around the Pulsechain sacrifice time, I had the pleasure of speaking to a guy who owns a nuclear power plant. And we discussed in great detail what it would look like to have miners that were literally just running off of the power of the nuclear plant. They have excess power that's not even getting used. All these nuclear plants around the world only use a tiny fraction of what they produce to actually turn the lights on in communities. And they're clean and they have power for thousands of years, right? They're like, as this world evolves towards, storable energy that's super efficient and greener forms of energy, which a lot of that is just some BS narratives out there, right? But there's actually energy that is useful and sustainable that could literally just crush the argument about proof of work harming the environment, right? Nuclear would be such an example, in my opinion.
Frosty.
And one more thing, does it matter? Does it matter how much energy is used, as long as we're not polluting the atmosphere and animals are dying and bad things are happening? Does it matter if that electricity coming through the wall is powering a GPU miner or any other ASIC miner or whatever? Does it really matter, as long as it's literally not harming the atmosphere or something? I don't know. I'm not the expert on that.
Frosty, that's a great place to switch to the Frost.
Well, again, it's just more people talking out both sides of their mouths. You know what I mean? They talk shit and they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. First of all, I've been an electrician and an electrical engineer and a project manager for years. And every country produces, especially North America, produces way more electricity than it even consumes. So if you look at Canada, the amount of electricity it produces, it has to dump electricity. They produce so much electricity, they have to sell it because it's all interconnected grid. It's an interconnected grid right from Canada all the way down to Latin America. It's all interconnected. You know what I mean? That's why when you had that solar flare that happened a few, maybe 6-7 years ago, that brought down the nuclear plant in Quebec, we had that blackout. I don't know if people remember, in North America, there was a giant blackout for 5 days. That's because that grid is interconnected. So they need to isolate that problem. Otherwise, when one nuclear plant goes down, it tries to back in and feed the other ones. It causes a chain reaction. So they need to isolate it. So since it's so interconnected, so in Canada, I'll give you an idea. So 13 cents was up to 21 cents a kilowatt hour now for a residential, unless you're on an industrial rate, and then which they pay based on power factor, not on per kilowatt. So then what happens is, so they produce so much electricity, they sell it to the US for 1 cent a kilowatt hour, but they charge the residential people 21 cents a kilowatt hour in order to dump it. And then sometimes they produce so much, they have to dump it literally to ground. You know what I mean? So when you have a ground, right, like a ground, so they produce so much, they have to dump it to ground. So if they're so fucking goddamn concerned about overproducing electricity and they're worried about fucking miners consuming electricity, why the fuck are they dumping electricity to ground? And you can go on this. This is free information. Pull up any energy. There's an energy grid website. I have to pull it up. I can't remember off the top of my head. Where you can see this interconnection grid, how much the entire network is being produced, and how much is being consumed at any given time in a 24-hour day, live, 365 days a period. And it's always way more. It'll show you how much money, energy they dump. But nobody looks at this shit. And on the side note, if these people that are talking out both sides of their mouth, which are generally the fucking other side, is they're running around with their $1,000 iPhones and their fucking $500 running shoes, and they're the ones complaining about electricity, but they have no problem turning the fucking Christmas lights on at Christmas, which consume more electricity in North America, just turning your Christmas lights on, than an entire mining industry itself. But they have a problem with mining, but they have no problem turning their fucking Christmas tree lights on. Okay. Just more double talk, people talking shit that don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Uneducated fucking retards. You know what I mean?
So, yeah, I completely agree. And I think that at least here in North America, I think we're in the process of people think it's because of like regulations, but I think it also has to do because I don't want to be connected to things. So we're in the process of almost like decentralizing the electrical grid from my point of view, because you switch over to solar and or batteries and
solar. Let's look at solar.
Cool.
Let's look at how fucking efficient solar is. Okay. So what's it going to cost you to put a fucking 10 kilowatt which is the maximum size on a residential you can do without providing for a FIT program, right? Before you go to above 10 kilowatts. So anywhere between a 5 and 10 kilowatt solar panel fucking roof system, it's going to cost you what? Somewhere between
20 grand,
30,
25,
30, yeah, 25, 30, 50 grand, depending on where you live in the state you're in, you know, and the inverters that you choose and stuff like that. Okay. So what's it going to cost you? 20 grand. Okay, so how much money do you pay for hydro right now? 20 cents, 13 cents, 11 cents, somewhere in there, depending on your state. So take 20,000, let's say average 30,000. Take $30,000 divided by 11 cents a kilowatt hour. How many fucking years of electricity does that give you paying? What, 10, fucking 50 years of paying electricity bill? Probably somewhere between 30 and 50 years of paying your electricity bill. Okay, now let's look at all the solar panels that have been installed over the last fucking 5 years. Okay, prior, because we installed many dual asset trackers, rooftop, FIT program, 1 fucking megawatt freaking solar ones. Are those panels even lasting? There's so many solar panels, they have to be replaced. There's literally solar panel dumps now. They just pile up. There's millions of fucking solar panels.
So I agree with some of this stuff, but I think that one of the things related to this, is you're able to. So I'm going to take it to hex because that's what people are going to understand here, where you're kind of moving a little bit closer to inflation, right? That's the argument behind hex, so to speak, right? You stake your shit and then you get inflation. In the energy market, who gets the inflation? The utility companies, right? So by going through this process, right? Yes, say it's 7 years, say it's 12 years to pay off, right? Or to like your break even point or whatever the case is, depending on your debt cost and several other factors. By doing this, it ends up, well, at least when I look at this, nobody factors in that piece of it, right? Because I know down here in Florida, the Duke is the company that I have, and they raised rates. They were like 6 or 9% an increase, right? And they raised rates last year, and they were going to raise rates next year, and they're going to raise rates the following year, and they're going to raise rates every consecutive year for the next 7 to 12 years. But by putting solar and or batteries, I'm able to, and the appropriate inverters on there, I'm able to shift that so that instead of inflation going to them, I'm able to capture inflation myself.
But are you really? So let's say if you're gonna take the same $30,000 investment, right, to offset the inflation that you're going to pay in electricity bills, right, over whatever time, because the reality is you're not going to get. The reality is you may think that you're going to get the rest of your life out of these solar panels. I'm going to tell you right now, if you get 5 years of actually steady functionality out of these things, you might be lucky. You might be lucky, right? So what if you just take that same $30,000 and you invested it into something else with a higher return? because the $30,000 you're going to get, you're not going to get your money out of it. You're not going to get your $30,000. It's going to take 50 fucking years for you to recoup your fucking money.
But there's not any. You don't have to actually put your cash into it. Like if you had to put $30,000 into it, I mean, it's all on a loan that a lot of times are subsidized, so you don't even pay. You know, it's that $30,000. You might put down, some taxes and fees at the beginning, but you really are not putting down. You're putting down a really trivial amount of money relative to the size of the loan, if it is $30,000, and then you have interest on that is generally subsidized, so you get a fucking lower interest rate, and then the interest is tax deductible, and then you're able to shift when the rate goes up by 7% next year. I don't have to pay that increase in there. But if I'm understanding correctly,
to me, you're wasting a ton of time and mental energy even thinking about that. Why don't you just take, how much money would you have if you took that same 20 grand and dumped it into ETH Fair right now?
But you're talking about using a separate loan to put into ETH Fair, is that correct?
I'm just saying, like, I'm saying the same economical energy, 20, 30 grand, regardless of where it comes from, right? We're talking about 20, 30 grand. That's the number, right? If you just took that same economical energy and you dumped it into ETH Fair 5 days ago, how much would that 20 grand be worth right now?
Oh, I completely agree.
So at that point in time, if you took 20 grand and you dumped it into fucking ETH Fair or ETHW 5 days ago,
or just crypto in general, yep, I agree.
Crypto in general, why the fuck would we even care what the inflation rate is? Would you really care what your hydro bill was? How much money would you make?
I agree.
If you dumped the same 20K in there, how much money would you have? 500K? 500K? Okay, so you turn that 20K into 500, remove it, you're left with 480, and then you take another 100K out of that for hydro bill for the rest of your natural existence on this planet, right? And you're still up fucking 300K.
If you're talking about the trade-off between those two, but I think we enjoy this conversation. I think I would like to do this at a deeper level with you because I enjoy this conversation. But I think
that's what the green room's for, Sam.
Sorry, I apologize.
I enjoy this. This is awesome.
No, I'm more on the side of Frosty too. It's like I don't like working that much either. That's a lot of work, But
it's the same mentality. Okay, are you better off to go home and cut your grass yourself? Okay. Let's say you make $50 an hour, okay? And they say, are you better off to take that 1 hour to go home and cut your lawn, or are you better off to have a guy go cut your lawn for $20? You stay at work for the 1 hour, you pay the guy fucking the $20 to cut the lawn, you're net positive $30, right? And this is why people are broke, because they will go home, take their time, cut their own grass, take time from using that same time, because time is a commodity. Nobody factors time into their equation, which if you don't factor time into your equation, the equation numbers are skewed. They don't function. Non-functional.
You almost need all of your time to do anything.
Right. Time is the most limited commodity on the planet. There is no other scarcer commodity than time. But the problem is people cannot manage their time. So what is investing? It's a function of time. Okay. Building a house is a function of time. Right. So all of our time, we all have the same 24 hours, the same 365 days a year. It's all equal, right? So what's the difference between guys that have money and guys that are fucking billionaires? When they started out with basically nothing and we all had the same 24 hours a day. Well, the common denominator in that is how they utilize their time, right? Yep. In order to do that. And that's a classic common denominator, basic function of what I'm talking about. If you make $50 an hour, you are better off to spend 20 to keep 30, and you've accomplished both tasks in the same point of time, and you've freed up more time, and you've made more money.
I agree 100%. So the way I look at it is how long does it take for you to break even on your investment? Right? If you spend 30 grand or 30 grand worth of economic energy is spent for you to at some point far out in the future, possibly eventually break even because you went with solar energy, okay? Mm-hmm. You're still down. For all that time, you're still in the red, okay? But if you took that same money and you put it into something else, or you made some other better form of investment where you're not in the red right off the bat, or maybe you're in the red for a much shorter period of time, and then Yes, it's all about time and putting your money to work for you so that it works the fastest. You don't want your money in other people's hands. You want your money in your hands, and crypto allows that. Stuff like what we're talking about now with making sound investment choices. That's like, look, solar, you're going to be down a long, long time on your solar investment, dude. It's that simple.
Well, can I ask? So let me hear your thoughts on this, both of you, because we're down this road far enough. So when you say break even, right? So I haven't put them on, but I'm probably going to be putting them on this year. There's also like a cash flow, right? So it doesn't cost me any money. I'm getting the lower interest rate, and then my utility bill actually comes down, right? So if I think about break even, I'm thinking about where my cash is flowing to, right? So I can send cash to a utility company. I can get a loan, which I can write off the interest, and my cash flow per month decreases. That additional investment of cash that I have per month, that delta, I could put into anything that I want to, right? Or I could just continue to pay the higher utility rate.
Okay,
right?
so let me ask you this question: in the event of imaginary horribles, because that's your best case. So we got it. In order to be completely objective, we got to analyze the best case scenario, and we got to at least consider the worst case scenario, right? So somewhere in between the best case and the worst case, we can hope for a medium, right? That's all we can do with anything, right? So in the event that you've taken this loan for whatever, say 20 grand, okay? And 5 years down the road, how long is this loan amortized for?
It depends on which lender I go with, but some of them are 20, some of them are 25 years.
Okay, so what happens in 5 years, and the solar panels are on the roof are absolutely garbage and they no functional, and you're still on the hook for the fucking next 15 years to pay it?
I don't plan on being in this residence for 5 years. So like that solves my problem for me because I don't plan on living here.
But that's the thing that we have to look at, because that's probably, and I can tell you right now, I know guys that spent $500,000 on a dual access tracker, right? And they got same thing, they got subsidized, they got whatever, you know what I mean? And they're still on the hook for paying that, and that fucking tracker and those solar panels are a complete fucking garbage.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the points of view. This is interesting.
Let's go back.
Enjoying it.
Anyway, that's we're off topic of crypto, but anyway.
It's all good. No worries.
I'm just trying to offer a different perspective to the same thing. You know?
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I do it. I'm very much. I'm pro time too. Like people always say, "Oh, you're wrecked. You're not making enough money." I'm like, dude, I just quit my job 150 days ago to study crypto full time. Give me a minute. Like, give me a couple months. Like, please. Like, can I have like 90 days before you just call me fucking perma-wrecked? Like, this isn't that hard, but it takes a lot of focus. And I knew with what I was doing with the gym and with work that my time, I had none of it. I was studying crypto at 3 a.m. That's not sustainable. That's stupid. But I knew I had to do it at the time because crypto moves without you or not. You know what I mean? But then I just said, screw it. And I talked to Sam, I talked to everyone, and I just quit my job. I didn't have necessarily a plan, but I understood crypto well enough where I was like, okay, this is this is where a lot of the money's flowing in of other people. And if I sit on this for a few years, I probably won't have to worry about money anymore.
But Sam's correct. You know what I mean? I agree with this. This is what I like about the fundamental principles of hex, because it's one of the only things that force people to think about time, right? It's the only blockchain that forces them to think about time. And time is the most important thing. And you have to absolutely factor it in. But with the part where you're going back, where you mentioned the cash flow is king in any business model, household model, right? I see so many people on a regular basis where they're booms and busts. They go out and they're like, okay, I can make more money doing X, right? And they get this big amount of money, but the spans are like 2-3 months, right? So they get 5K. 10K, and then they have no money, and then they'll get 5K, and then they'll have no money, right? And then you're constantly worried because that is an impossible system. You are far better off to have a much lower fucking amount of money, but steady coming in all the time. Because then you take Then you can take 1, 2, 3, or 5% or 10% or whatever that number is on that ratio, because it's a ratio of what your expenses are compared to your income. No different than ratio trading right now. Everything's a ratio. See how these things are all prevalent and they're consistent: time, ratios, cash flow. And so you take that regular cash flow at a lower common denominator of monthly income, and you take 5%, put it to work. 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 And you just keep doing that and doing that and doing that and doing that till you get to the point where that 5% dollar cost average has compounded, because the other part people don't understand is compounded interest. Your credit card charges you compounded interest all the time. Well, that same compounded interest, instead of working against you, can actually be used to work for you. If you take 1 penny and you double it every day for 30 days, you have what, $3.1 million in 30 days. So instead of getting fucked by your mortgage with compounded interest, instead of getting fucked with compounded interest with your credit card, you know what I mean? Instead of getting fucked with compounded interest on your car loan, start using those same principles that are fucking you in the ass for your benefit. Right?
Family show, Frosty. Family show.
Sorry.
I
No, you're good. You're good. No, I totally agree with you too. Like, I don't like. I'm zero overhead, no credit type of guy. I don't like having, and that's just where I'm at this moment in my life. But you know, as I do own a house, and it has appreciated in value a lot. So I mean, but I have renters in the house, and they pay for the mortgage every month, so I don't have to do anything.
This is what I love about Latin America. I come to Latin America and they're like, oh my God, everybody's poor. They have nothing. They're broke. I'm like, wait a minute. These guys own their house. They have no mortgage on their land. They own their car. They have no credit card debt. I'm like, okay, you're richer than these people, but you owe everything to everybody. You cannot miss a day of work, because if you do, you're going to go bankrupt, because somebody's going to foreclose on your mortgage, your car loan, your credit card debt, or whatever, right? And you're not going to be able to exist.
There's different kinds of debt, though, right? So
well, that's true. That's true. You're correct.
Obviously, okay.
You're right.
I'm an advocate for liquid loans. I came from that team. Now Power City, we have a front end for that. Now check this out.
You're right.
When you have capital to begin with, and you believe that capital will appreciate over time, taking a loan out against your own assets is actually really, really, really smart. Because then you're not selling your original asset and then losing all the future appreciation of it, right? And there's tax advantages and so on and so forth. If you're broke and you take a loan and it's the bank's money, that's different than collateralizing against something that you already own.
That's correct. You're 100% correct. There's a good difference between good debt and bad debt. My point was, I'd say 98% of the people don't realize good debt and bad debt. You know what I mean? So
everyone that calls me a rec pleb, I sit at my desk all day and do whatever the fuck I want. And they all call me a rec pleb. And I'm like, all right, go to work, buddy. Like, you know, like, have fun. Like, I'll smoke joints and do whatever the fuck I want. And because and I'm not saying people shouldn't work or whatever, but I was just saying, like, people generally come at me and they're going to say I'm broke. Like, that's like their only like real angle, because I'm very transparent about where I'm at. I just like to tell people what's actually going on so we can have an honest conversation. I'm 28 years old. I think everything's going fine. You know, like, I don't want to have to be the guy who's a millionaire just to be on here. I just want to be the guy that I am. Would rather that.
Again, you're right. There's just two sides of that coin. That one side of the coin that I was talking about was the average person, but Jesse is 1,000% correct. There is the other side of the coin where there is good things such as good debt. And you can basically, and the whole monetary system in which we've lived for the last 50 years is literally debt driven. You know what I mean? So the whole ecosystem is literally debt driven and rehypothecated dollars based on debt. But you first need to understand the basic fundamentals of economics and how that works in order to take advantage of it. Because if you have $1 million liquid sitting in cash, you could easily rehypothecate that money and have 1 million turn it into 3, right? And then you're going to pay an interest rate on that. But as long as the interest rate is lower than the value you're bringing it in, then you've basically rehypothecated $1 million into $3 million out of thin air based on doing that. And that's exactly how people get richer and richer, because then they end up paying off the say 1 million of the 3 million, now have 2 million, rehypothecate that 2 into 6. right? And then it's the same compounded functional. And Jesse's 100% right, because if you have $1 million, instead of cashing out $1 million worth of crypto, you take a loan on that, because a loan is a non-taxable event. So then you get to keep your crypto, not cash it out, don't pay capital gains tax on it, which some places is 60, 50, 60, 70%, depending on the country and the place you live. Instead of creating that taxable event, you're able to keep that asset, rehypothecate that money and pay a smaller interest rate and have double your money and no tax. This is completely legal, and people do it all the time.
No one's educating. There's no one that's going to educate you on this.
Well, listen, we're going to just do some real quick math. So many people think it's just, okay, when my coins go up in value, I'm going to sell some, right? Everybody says that. Oh, when this thing 2x's, I'm going to get my initial out. If we both started with 20 grand and we went with the narrative, every time the price doubles, let me shave off half my bag, even if it's volatile, when it eventually doubles each time, you're going to take out half your bag. Okay. You start with $20,000 worth of a coin. I start with $20,000 worth of coin. Watch this. The price doubles. You have 40,000, you shave off 20 and you feel good, right? Because you've got 20,000 you shaved off. You have 20,000 left in your original coin. It's going to do that again. The price is going to double again and double again and double again. And after 10 doublings, what you have in value is $200,000 extracted, and you have $20,000 worth of your original coins. Congratulations. You just over 10x'd your original value, right? You feel good. You're like, great, I got rich. Okay. Meanwhile, I sat through the same 10 doublings. I didn't even take a loan or anything like that. I literally just held. Okay, through all that volatility. And my $20,000 worth of coins turned into 40, turned into 80, turned into 160. And after 10 doublings, it was $20,480,000 worth of coins, because I simply decided to hold. So if I had been selling and reducing my coin count that whole time, that wouldn't have been possible. You were reducing your coin count the whole time. You can't say that either one of us are wrecked. It's just I got the better end of the deal because I didn't sell. And maybe somewhere along the line you could insert the ability to, well, shoot, I want to get some of this out. So you collateralize against some of that, just a little piece of that, and then you can actually have some money to spend. And when you do that along the way,
I want to do.
The guy who makes the smart choice of holding on for the long term wins dramatically every single time.
Thank you for bringing that up, Jesse. That's 100%.
That's exactly what I've been waiting for, and I'm so excited for. I'm so excited because all I do is buy. I'm a coin count guy. I like getting my coin count up. Like, I don't really like looking at the price too much, other than the lows when I'm buying. I like to buy at a local low if I can, of course. But because that just amplifies everything a little bit. But when we're talking about these zero liquidity assets on these other chains that could adopt, it really does change the dynamic of the amount of money you're spending for the initial payment, because those liquidity pools are so new and those coin counts are so close.
Coin count matters. Your value is determined by a few things. The coin count that you have multiplied by the price. Too many people only look at the price, okay? Mm-hmm. But then you also have to factor in, what's the liquidity? How much of that can I actually get out? You could argue that all of crypto is a zero-sum game. Every dollar that comes in, there's a buyer and there's a seller. You're handing over your USDC to somebody else who then is able to walk away with that money, right? If $20 million came into a crypto, tons of people flooded 20 million into a crypto, they're buying from probably a small group of people that got in before them who now walk away with that $20 million, okay? The money sloshes back and forth, and the people who buy have to wait for the other people to come in. It doesn't make it a Ponzi or anything like that.
That's not just crypto. That's every market.
That's everything.
Well, gold, silver, housing,
except for peer-to-peer. Except for peer-to-peer. If I sell you a piece of art and we negotiate a price, that's a little different. Or you could even say NFTs, where it's just a buyer and one single seller, and they negotiate a price. Right, that's different than stocks or crypto.
Yeah, but it's the same thing. Like there's others. The majority of all the other markets are the exact same way. Everybody tried to liquidate, right? From the market cap number, You know what I mean?
Right.
It's impossible. Nobody would get their money out. You know what I mean? Because you think the fucking stock, the value of Tesla, you know what I mean? Go sell the value, the market cap of Tesla. You think the money's there? No, it's not there. It's not
Go
there.
sell the market cap
It's
of the house.
rehypothecated.
Where's the
It's
liquidity pool for
rehypothecated.
my house? Where's the liquidity pool for my house? Like, who's
It's-
got the liquidity for all these houses? No one, except specific little people that do that for business. You know what I
It's
mean?
rehypothecation. It's rehypothecation. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, again, there's nothing new here. Like, it's not that he's 100% correct. It's just every market's that way, except obviously like a few select individual markets, but the majority of financial markets are that way.
So let's talk about Metcalfe's law then, and why spreading the surface area of some of these chains and moving things, whether proof of stake is, and we'll talk about SEC violations a little bit here as well, because that's really the hot topic. I'm going to be talking about that at 1:00, and anyone who wants to come on and ask questions about that and who has insight, because there's a lot of centralized exchanges that are getting liquidated right now. So a lot of and people are buying them. You know, like people are buying the centralized exchanges. Who is buying the centralized exchanges? That's what we're going to have to figure out. And who is in control here? And is proof of stake and SEC, I mean, is a, what if they said, imagine a world where they just said proof of stake is a, a security, doesn't pass the Howey law, whatever the fuck they decide to say. What if that's the reality and actually these proof of work chains double down and they started with zero liquidity and everyone has to funnel back into them? Imagine a world like that. And this is crypto. That shit can happen. I don't care what anyone fucking says. Because they will.
In my opinion, it's probably highly probable.
That's what I don't want to say anything directly, but like that's what I'm saying. Like they can make rules, new rules, fun new rules.
That's the key. That's the key. Because you guys all assume, here's the assumption. You guys all assume the rules today are going to say the same rules tomorrow. Right? And you seem to say, okay, well, it passes the Howey test today, but you fail to recognize it's just a matter of a committee saying, we don't like that rule, and the Howey test now consists of X. And let me ask you this question. Has that ever happened throughout history, where the government or the fucking state just changes the rules? It happens.
You don't have far to look.
Through history. Imagine that.
I wasn't allowed to leave my house a year ago, and I had to wear a diaper mask to get food from the store. So
exactly. So if we would have had this conversation 5 years ago and said, "Hey, we're gonna lock you in the house, and in Canada, we're gonna fucking seize your bank accounts if you supported XYZ, shut down your business," right? You'd go, "Frosty, you're a fucking lunatic. That would never fucking happen." So if you don't think they have the ability just to go, this is not in our favor. Now it is in our favor. If you don't think they have that ability, you really don't understand history, then you deserve the consequences in which you exist, in my opinion.
Yes.
What? Oh, Jesse, did you have something to say in this? And then I wanted to ask.
Yeah, I want to get Frosty's opinion on something. I mean, this is leaning towards super controversial, right? But
yeah, you guys are going to the hate that's going to come out of this conversation on your stream is going to be horrible, guys. And I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Because
this is like every controversial topic on the planet.
Because every buyer is the exit liquidity for another person somewhere.
Yep.
Okay. Every dollar that comes in, another guy can take a dollar out. Because we know that. In a coin that has no staking functions, wouldn't you say that there has to be people that sell the top and are in loss so a coin can actually reset and continue to function properly?
It has to.
Right?
It's
There's
impossible.
always
It has to.
It has to. Now, in a token that has a staking function and those people are locked up, so you can't shake them out. So the ledger just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Does that present an issue?
Well, I guess it depends on the issue. I think it creates a favorable imbalance.
But it does create an imbalance.
Exactly.
And the biggest thing that make it keep working is you just have to have network effect, like drastically and ever increasing over time, right? That's everything, but maybe even more so in stuff that has certain staking functions.
Yeah, there's going to come. Anyway, that's a whole different conversation, probably for offline, because that was going to piss a bunch of people off. But you're 100% right. I know exactly what you're talking about. There is going to become a function of time where things change, and I'm not sure too many people have thought about that.
Yeah, there has to be solutions.
Yeah.
And there's people working on solutions. It's just really hard.
So Jesse, that's a good segue. You mentioned the network, right? And basically just new users has to be coming in, and when you say it like that, it sounds like, you know, Ponzi-ish type of thing, but it's the same thing that, you know, people in our government utilize for GDP, right? In terms of population growth and things like that.
Oh, so there's another one. Let's look at the GDP number. How many times has the government changed how they calculate GDP in the last 2 years? How many times?
I have no idea, but it's been changed so many times in just the past century. Like it's like I get to pick the number that dictates so many different things or influences so many different things. So I get to present you with that number, but I also get to create the rules that go into the calculating this number. Like, what kind of asinine?
As a millennial who just learned about all these things, and I skipped out on school, I didn't pay attention to none of that shit. Nothing I paid attention to. I started learning about 3 years ago. I never once looked at that number for anything but it going up or down, because the whole number itself is absolutely disgustingly. Have they seen the job market? Do they know what the job market looks like? The job market has been wrecked for 3 years, and they're just like, yeah, well, you know, we're up in the percentage here. And it's just like, dude.
Numbers are the most manipulated thing in the freaking world. You know what I mean? There's so many ways to get to 5 that it's not even funny. So how you get there is depending on which way you want to calculate it, right? So this is the part I don't understand. Most people go to school and their whole objective in their life generally has been trained to earn money. Okay, you go to school, get a good education, you go to university, get a good job to go get a high dollar per hour to earn money. Okay, so your math equation is basically X. Okay, we are trying to reach X, and all the function of time you've done is to reach an X, right? But the reality is time versus dollar per hour equals X is the absolute worst math equation on the planet to achieve X. Okay, so maybe you should rework your algebra to find a different way to solve for X, because because X is easily calculated. How much money can you possibly make per hour? $500 an hour? Let's say $1,000 an hour. You're going to make $1,000. You fucking hit the fucking job lottery. Okay, and you make $1,000 an hour. How many hours can you work a day? Let's say 12. Okay, 12 hours a day times $1,000 an hour times 5 days a week times 365 days a year times 20 years. We can literally calculate what the average amount of money you're going to make in a lifetime. Is it ever going to make you rich on that math equation? No, it's impossible. It's impossible. Sure, you might have a good middle class life, whatever, you know what I mean? Be, you know, upper middle class or whatever, but you're never going to be rich. So if your objective is going to be to solve for X, so that you want to retire and never work a day again in your life, and you can have sovereignty over your time, right? Because it's the only most valuable commodity on the planet. There's nothing else that matters.
Be productive once you do that. You can actually start being productive. Then, how many people do you help now, Frosty, compared to?
Well, that's just it. You make money, and then with that money, you change the world. Okay, so everybody's trying to change the world with no money. Just focus on making a shit tons of money, and then use that shit tons of money to actually make a fucking difference. Because and people think this is controversial. But the reality is, it takes money to lobby governments to fucking get your thing in there, to do all that stuff. That stuff's not cheap. And nobody's going to listen to you. If you're a broke-ass pleb and you're going to go fucking talk to government, you think they give two fucking shits what you think? They're not even going to fucking let you in the goddamn office. And I'm sorry, that may be controversial, but it's true. But if, say somebody goes out there and you're worth $100 million, they'll take your phone call and they'll put you in the meeting, and you have to lobby them. Say, look, okay, we have an election. You help me with my election. Okay, then we're going to do that. Then, you know, there's two ways that goes down. It goes for positive change and it goes for negative change. You can't. There's got to be a medium, and always there's There's always a good case and there's always an extreme. And the only thing we can hope for is to be down the middle, and that we keep the extremism out and keep a happy medium line, right? But right now we're shifting. We're so far one way, and now we're shifting so far the other way. We have to get back to an equilibrium. There's always going to be these extremisms on either side. There's always going to be a best case. There's always going to be a worst case. Tomorrow the sun's going to shine, and tomorrow there's going to be a hurricane. You know what I mean? Those things are going to exist no matter what it is. And all we can hope is everything's good. So, but that is the reality. It takes money. It takes economic energy. And until humans stop existing, there's going to have that greed, envy, lust. You know what I mean? Those characteristics, those things exist because they're a byproduct and characteristics of human beings. So as long as human beings exist, they will never go away. So we have to learn to work with them in and accept them and factor them into our equation, math equation and time equation, in order to have that change, right? But people should focus on making money, make it quickly, then use that money to change the world, right? That's
so
how the world works.
This is cool. So like in crypto, there's so many different ways to make money in crypto and make it very quickly. The conversation around POS and POW, the POS is purported to be more scalable than proof of work, right? And we need new people in crypto, not for price to go up, but also for many reasons, right? Related to the more heady stuff that we've been talking about, change in the world and changes government policy changes, like, you know, that stupid conversations to have more intelligent conversations. What are your thoughts, both of you guys, on the POS being more scalable versus?
It doesn't matter. Look, there's new chains all the time. There's like new chains popping up left and right. There's literally hundreds of them, right? Phantom chain, you got Opera chain, you've got Matic, you've got Avalanche. Look, and all these things, you can now bridge back and forth between all of them, and they all take the load off of each other. No, exactly. They don't. They aren't all up to the same security levels. Bad things happen in crypto. In time, things, you would hope that security just tightens up and tightens up and tightens up. You don't want all of that on one single location. Imagine being an investor, like the billionaire guy, who just dumps all his money in one single spot and puts it all at risk, all inside of Ethereum, because Ethereum says they're scalable. And like, is that safe? Is that the right thing to do?
I've been preaching that for 400 days straight, telling people, hey, I'm a new investor. I'm not going to over leverage into this thing in a bear market. That's not smart. I'm just getting involved. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's important, but everyone and their mother was telling me to put everything that I had. And now look what I have comparatively. You know, it's a lot of it. My whole scope is a little bit different now.
Right.
And I still have all my hex stakes, like it, you know, on Ethereum, but I never over leveraged when it came to staking. I did 33%. That's what I felt like was a normal, okay amount. And even at the time, gas fees were not feasible. And today, compoundly, the gas fees are still not feasible as far as you could provide liquidity and make a fuck ton more money.
Crypto is a giant game of Pac-Man. Eat as many coins as you possibly can before the other people eat them. Okay? And capture the most amount of value before the other people capture the value in front of you. Okay? Now, do you want that entire game of crypto all in one single blockchain because they say they're scalable?
No.
That's not decentralization. It's easily controllable by governments. You know, if it becomes a security over there, like, there's major problems. Okay. Now, we have blockchains that pop up all the time. Pulsechain is going to be one, you know, hopefully sooner rather than later. Okay. And it's going to capture some of the value, you know, from all the other chains, but it's not going to capture all of it. And it's okay that happens, because I think it's okay to have the value that people choose to bring into crypto spread across the just giant network of interoperable, cross-chain swappable blockchains. I think that's safer than having it all in one single spot that says they're scalable.
That's too logical, bro. You're going to make some people upset in here, okay? You're going to be...
sorry, go ahead. In my opinion,
No,
that's actually
no,
a
I was gonna
benefit.
say-
Having 4 chains is a benefit. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say you put $2,000 on ETH Fair. Okay. And ETH Fair pumps 2,000%. Or it's the ETHW, because ETHW the other day pumped 2,300 roughly plus or minus percent, right? Depending on the chart you're looking at. So roughly 2,000%. So you put $2,000 in, you pumped it to $2,000, right? Or 2,000 to 2,000%. What if you took that money, the rehypothecated money, and then dumped it back on the other chain? And then that went up
That's a fraction of
2,000%.
it.
Well, that's what the whole Hedron thing was too. We were like, guys, there's new users. There's 1,500 users today, and in Hex, there's only 400. This is good. This is Metcalfe's law. This is more money sloshing back and forth in between the
There's a
assets.
whole
That's
new
called
game theory
compounding.
here. There's
That's
a whole new game
compounding.
theory. It's compounding on
You-
steroids.
That's compounding. That puts the power of compounding and eating all the coins you possibly can and putting them back into other places you want. That it's super powerful. So if ETH Fair did a 200x and you took a tenth of that, okay, 10% of that, and you're like, oh, well, look at how big my bags have grown over here. Let me take this 10% and go put it in this thing I like over on this other chain, Hex
That's
on the
down.
ETH chain, for example. All you've done is you just won. You ate the most coins.
What do you think about Hex on all this change? If you look at EtherScan on mainnet, the number of holders, right? So like obviously I could have 17 fucking addresses, but the number of holders in Hex over the last several days has continued to decrease. From 311,000 now it continues to drop down slowly. So clearly there's people in the arena who are selling Hex on mainnet, and there's an idea that they're probably buying it up on ETHF or ETHW. And I'm curious to hear what Frosty, what do you think is going to happen with the 3 versions of Hex?
I just mentioned, I think it's a sloshing effect, a recompounding sloshing effect, that a new game theory that exists that never existed before, that nobody has factored into their math equation, right? Because everybody thinks this is horrible, but you have the ability to rehypothecate tokens and a game theory that never existed 2 weeks ago.
At a 10x or more, or already just off the bat.
Hey, Sam, you said people are selling Hex to go buy Hex on a different chain. There's 2 points I want to make on that. You have to remember, for every seller, there's a buyer. So you could equally say there's people buying Hex while this is happening, okay? But honestly, when you look at those liquidity pools, info.uniswap.org, you'll see that there's been $4 or $6 million worth of Hex buys over the past, 5 days or so. But that's gone to the earlier people who are deciding to be liquidity providers above the current price. So are people really just dumping their bags and running, or is it people already had big bags and they just have sell walls? And it's like it's hard to comprehend. But you have to remember, there's equally as many people selling as there are people buying.
It's an interesting game theory. It's an interesting game theory that I don't think most people have got their head wrapped around it yet. There's a few of them, like all of you guys caught on to it right away. You guys all over like dirty shirts, you know what I mean? But there's a lot of people that haven't got their head wrapped around the new game theory.
Oh, well, Hedron helped me out. Hedron got me ready for it, because I was like, here we go, a low liquidity asset tied to the T share. I can get in and get a good portion of it, because nobody knew the circulating supply, and I did. So I could see how much of the portions I was actually getting in comparison to what I was getting on other chains. So I said, well, why don't I just get a squids position in this, or whatever position in this, because I can't afford that on this other chain. And then let's speculate a little bit that this will work out, because Alex from Hedron's absolutely top tier, going hard every day, telling everyone, connecting every dApp to everything, posting every single day his updates. And, I'm bullish on that kind of action. I like that kind of action but these things can fail if there is no community support.
Well, what I don't understand is, everybody complains about the OGs. They got in early. They've got the massive amount of tokens. Well, here's 2 brand new opportunities to buy Hex. It's the exact same contract. Nothing's different. Nothing's different. Code hasn't changed. Functionality hasn't changed. Nothing's changed. And now you're going to be able to get nothing changed at a fraction of the price for $2. for $2. What is it? It's $2.02 right now on ETH Fair. Are you kidding me?
Remember this too. If ETH Fair goes up in value, right? Which it's pretty easy for that to happen. Look at ETH Classic. It's $100. Nothing's happening over there. Nothing's happening on ETH Classic. It's $100. So now you've got these two other chains. ETH Fair, people are building. There's an NFT platform over there now. They're giving out grants so people come and build. So literally with the same supply, you could argue, well, why couldn't it be more than $100? Why can't it be $200? And because Hex is paired to it, literally people could sit over there and do nothing. And as the value of ETH Fair goes up, the value of that Hex also goes up.
Well, that's what I mean. And
it could outperform the original OG
Well, the
Hex.
fees are cheaper, so of course.
It will. It will absolutely outperform. It will. I'll put money on it right now. It will outperform. The S curve of the rate of adoption on these two chains will outperform the rate of adoption on the other one. So that S curve that took, what, 2.5 years to get where we are? This S curve, this exponential curve will outpace it. And I charted it.
We told everyone the same thing.
It's already outpaced it.
We told everyone with Hedron, with spreadsheets, we said, if you like gains and you put $100 into this asset, you will make less gains than if you put it into Hedron, because there's no liquidity and everyone sold it at the time when we were telling people. It was completely oversold to past nothing. There was nothing.
This isn't a negative, okay? This is not a negative. This is actually a benefit, because what happens if these new guys that come in and they drop $1,000 in here or whatever, $500, and they turn this $500 into $100K? Okay, what happens if, say, ETH POS is down, right? But these two other ones up, this guy's got an extra $100K. Why wouldn't you take 20K of that and dump it back in, let's say, the proof of stake that's down, or POW that's down, or ETH Fair that's down? So now you just you're already up, you've been able to take money and throw it down there and make another $100K. You know what I mean? So this is actually a benefit if people just get their head wrapped around it. You know what I mean? Like, all of these are not going to move in synchronism. Like, so on the fourth chain, even when Pulse gets launched, we have this on 4 chains, they are all not going to be in sync. You know what I mean? It's just not. Well,
by definition, they're locked up to different pairs that move at different rates at different times, but people just don't understand the pools yet. They just
it's the ratio trade. Even if you don't understand the pool and you don't even understand the liquidity providing, okay? And that's too deep down the rabbit hole for you. That's fine, because it's like a decentralized order book. Okay, maybe that's too much for somebody. Just get your freaking head wrapped on it right now. Think about it. I tried to explain this the other day in the chat, right? It's okay. ETHW went up 2,000%, okay? And at one point, it was a 22-to-1 ratio, okay, between ETHW and ETH Fair. So your money went up 22,000%, and if the only common denominator is token supply, it was a 22-to-1 fucking ratio. So you got 22 times the tokens just by switching chains. And then that the 22 times the token by just switching chains, just pulling it off ETHW, dumping it in ETH Fair, you got 22 times the tokens. And then 22, do the math on that. Take 22 times the tokens, and then ETHW, let me see, where did it go up? Okay.
ETH Fair had a triple or something. Like
it did 361% in 24 hours.
Then 22 times 360%. Get your head wrapped around that math for 1 minute. And how much did you make off of one $1,000 investment?
Dude, I made a fuck ton. That's what I was trying to tell everyone. Like, I was trying to tell everyone, like, dude, we were in day 1 and 2, and like I put in like $500 3 or 4 times, and I did it for the first time. I am not a crypto expert, and it was not difficult as long as you had some people there that knew, like, you be safe, of course. And there it is. Like, you know, and then now I took 3 times my investment out and put it into my PayPal account right away. That's what I'm saying. And then I have millions and millions of coins rather than like 100,000, 200,000 on the ETH chain. You know what I mean? So I think it's really important to speculate properly. But I already took 3 times my money out, and everyone's going to say I'm sitting here and pumping it. And I'm just like, no, guys, there's opportunity here. I'm just trying to teach you what's going on while everyone else tries to just confuse you, because they frankly don't know how any of this works.
That's the thing. So people basically that come out, in my opinion, that come out against it and everything else, they fear it. And when people don't understand something, the only thing they can do is trash it, right? And it's just, in my opinion, it's just a lack of education. But if they just stop talking for 5 minutes and just listen, you know what I mean? We're not trying to sit here and boast and fucking brag about what's happening. Like, you guys and Bullish, like, literally for the last week have spent so much of your time, your fucking
6 hours a day minimum.
Your time, which is the most valuable commodity on the planet, all of you guys have spent trying to help other people. And here's a little advice from my situation where I am through this whole process for many years. Okay. I've come to learn at this point, it's virtually impossible to help most people. And I'm sorry to say that. I really am. And it's sad. And that's why I've stepped back from doing a lot of these things, because it's wasted my time. It's wasted my energy. It's wasted my money. And it's costed a lot of freaking headache that's not necessary in my life for people that just don't care. Right? So that's why I've kind of stepped back from this. You know what I mean? And I've stepped back from the ecosystem. I've stepped back from trying to do a lot of that stuff. And I'm going to focus my time and energy on something that's actually productive, because I've wasted a ton of time. No offense. You know what I mean? I get 100% what you're doing. But the reality is the percentage of people that you're really going to impact at the end of the day, and it's probably
just like 10 or 12, something like at the like the guys that are scrounging, really looking for information, just like I was. I know they're in there, but they're not the majority.
No,
you know what I mean? They're not the majority.
You know, and I mean, I don't mean that by any disrespect. You know what I mean? I'm just telling you from my experience, what I've experienced in the past of trying to do the same thing. And if time is the most commodity thing, we can now put that time to function out, to work somewhere else, to better ourselves and a few other people that matter, then to me, that's more important. And that's why I've stepped back from it. But I'm more than willing to come in and have conversations with people like you and everything else. I'm just not going to waste hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of my day arguing with people on Twitter, trying to convince them the world's not flat. You know what I mean? Like, it's a waste of my time and mental capability. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, that's
why I ignore everyone that asks me how to put the RPC settings in, because I'm like, I don't want you playing with any of this stuff if you don't know how to put the RPC settings in. Like, you're not going to get more advice from me.
But at some point, people have to accept responsibility for their actions and stop being children. Okay, they want somebody like us to do everything for them. Here, give me the computer, enter it in, and do it for me. Bullish has given them spoon-fed them absolutely everything they need and more on a post on Twitter, on freaking the group, on and the bot prints it every 2 seconds or every 5 minutes or whatever the time frame is, where it gives them everything. Like, all they got to do is copy. They don't even have to type the freaking thing. All you have to do is copy, paste, and they still can't do it. Okay, at what point? My question is, at what point do you stop? Do you draw the line? It's like, okay, come on. Okay.
Well, that's exactly where I was at. You know, I was a freedom fighter all the way up until about a month ago, and I said, I need to educate now, and I need to stop worrying about what people are asking me in my Twitter DMs, because you run out of time. When you run out of time, you run out of time, right? So then you have to start cutting things off, and the first thing to go is random ignorant messages that have no insight or real detail to them. Like, those are the first.
That's one of the first thing I did. I literally shut off the DMs to my Twitter, because it was just people calling, asking, and you know what? It was mostly asking for money. Oh, I need money. Can you fund this? Can you fund that? Blah blah blah. Can you help me? I'm broke. I'm down and out. I'm whatever. Instead of asking, be like, hey man, I'm in this situation. Do you have some advice to make my life better? They're just asking for handouts. They just want people to do the work for them, you know? And I have no problem helping people. I love helping people. That's exactly what I'm here in Latin America to do. You know what I mean? But I'm not going to waste my time anymore.
And we all know what it's
to
like
give myself
lazy.
A heart attack.
Has everyone in this chat been lazy before when they were 15, 16, 18 years old? Have you ever just fucked off and did whatever you want for years on end? That's what it's like to be a teenager. That's what teenagers do. That's why you're supposed to act like that when you're a teenager, and then stop acting like that when you're an adult. You're supposed to move on. And it's just like if you go to a jail or something, the guys in there, they act like they're 11 years old and they throw poop on each other. Because they're literally 11 years old. Literally, like, people be stuck wherever they stop learning. And then when you stop learning and you just go into a state of I'm going to sit here. Like, there's nothing, you know, you have to learn from stimuli. So if you're not getting the stimuli you need, you're just going to stay. That's just like people that never date anyone. And when they're 40, they're like, I hate my life. And it's like, dude, you never asked a chick out once.
There's
You
too much
never went out
cognitive bias. There's too
Yeah.
much cognitive bias. You know what I mean? Like, they have their way of thinking and they refuse to listen to the other side of the coin, because there's always more than one side of the coin. You know what I mean? There's Sam's, there's yours, there's Bullish, there's Jesse's. We all have different views. We all see things differently based on our experiences in our lives, right? And to be single-sided on, say, any one of these 5 views is ignorant, right? Because sometimes somebody will offer a perspective that maybe that one we did not consider, and go, wait a minute, you know what? If we factor a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of this, it could actually make all of our lives better. And that makes a difference. But people get stuck in their cognitive bias. They get stuck to their guns. And the majority of the time, their opinions and their thought process is wrong. That's why they are where they are. You know what I mean?
And they'll tell you to, like, oh, I work all day. And I'm like, yes, that's why you don't know anything, bro.
Oh, that's classic.
because you're at work all day. I know, and I hate when people try to make points to me and they're like, dude, I've been working here and I'm like, I know you're busy. You have 3 kids. I don't have any of that shit. I study all day. That's why I know you're an idiot. And because I know if I had no time, I wouldn't be able to understand what I'm understanding too, because I have 24 hours to study this stuff every day. So I have the time to do it like it's a college course rather than sparingly. But when my kids stop running around and when the bills are paid and when I get back from the office, and like the reason time is the most valuable thing. We're going to answer a couple of questions so I don't just keep being a dick. Pac-Man is, first of all, guys, Pac-Man is on red alert. He is upset about the SEC. He wants to know what's going to go on. First of all, Pac-Man, they're not super quick. So I don't think with quickness, you know, the SEC, you don't really have to worry. So guys, what worries me is
actually, I think your time frame is going to be a lot quicker than you think. Because let's say that bill gets through. Let's say for game theory things, let's say it gets shoved through in a bill within the next 6 to 8 months. Okay, that means that bill basically comes in sometimes mid 2024, 2025. So if the infrastructure is not deployed in that, say, year and a half, right, to have a plan decentralized, you will be stuck in that. So that means there's a lot of work, and a year or a year and a half doesn't take very long to go by. That happens very, very quick. Time flies. The older you get, it seems like it goes faster and faster. You know what I mean? So we got to be very careful. Just be very careful with the words, in my opinion, saying, well, we got time for that. Well, there's a lot of work and infrastructure that has to go into there to make sure that things are okay on the other side and those bags are protected in a different ecosystem, right?
So what do you think about the question then in general? Like for this guy's question in particular, he says, guys, what worries me is the Fed and FTX guys, Bankman, will go against DeFi and they will try to make it illegal. That's a weird word, illegal. Any thoughts on this, on how this can affect Pulsechain, PulseX, and Hex in the future?
Well, I'm not a fortune teller, you know what I mean? But based on the trend, okay, from me being in Canada, the way things are going in Holland, the way things are going in Europe, the way things are trending in the USA, the way things are trending in Australia, unless that trend changes, the probability, there's no certainties, only probabilities. And the probability at this point in time, in my opinion, with the information I have and the current trend that we're on, that is a high probability. And unless that trend changes and something derails it one way or another, I would very much keep that as a high probability of outcome. So if that's the case, and what's your plan B and what's your plan C, right? And if it changes, okay, let's say it changes. Okay, well, fine, then we don't have to worry about it. Okay, in the event it does come true, then what? What's your plan B? So in my opinion, we're better to have 2 proof of work options, maybe 3, right? And in the event that has it, we have a carbon copy of our bags, because any person and or a group of people could just fire up a bunch of nodes, could fire up a bunch of miners and keep that chain going, right? It'd be like the government trying to play whack-a-mole, trying to shut it down, because as soon as it knocks down 1, 10 more would pop up somewhere else, right? That to me is a much better situation than
And Jesse, what do you think on the topic? Did you hear the question, Jesse?
Yeah, the sound's just a little wrecked sometimes on my end, but I did hear the question.
You want me to read it again, or do you? It's just about it. It's basically
No,
about.
no.
Okay.
So centralized control from the government kind of sucks, right? If you look at stocks, look, you're not allowed to day trade unless you're an accredited investor, right? So you can't just jump into a stock and jump out of a stock 3 times a week or whatever without, getting flagged and having your account frozen. Even on simple platforms like Robinhood, unless you're an accredited investor, there's just so many controls put in place so that the little guys can't get ahead. And usually it's under the guise of, hey, we're trying to protect you. But the money always flows to the big guys, right? So that can't possibly be the reasons. So, but on the other hand, does the everyday user give a shit if something is labeled a security or not? If something's labeled a security and the guy who created that thing gets fined and the thing continues to run, fine, do the investors or do the people buying and selling that crypto really care whether some entity somewhere in the world labeled it a certain way or didn't label it a certain way? Probably not, right? But like Frosty said, the most important thing is ensuring the security and the longevity of it so it can't get stopped. It doesn't matter what a thing is called. You can call it a security all day long. But as long as it continues to run on a chain somewhere, that's what matters.
And the next question that goes right into that would be, what do you guys think about the OA nuking Hex on forks and wrecked people since Hex is not open source and there are mentions of that on the website? So basically it's not open source because, I think that there's a reason it's not open source, but the reason the OA nuking anything has nothing to do with the code not being open source. But the OA, I can tell you a few things about the OA. They like when Hex has more people, they understand Metcalfe's law, and they understand what we need to do to stay up as a chain, and they understand all of this stuff can fail if we're not very smart about it.
Okay, let's look at this from a logical point of view and the incentive factors behind it. Okay, how much money how many tokens are in the OA, and how much is the OA address worth on the proof of stake network? I don't even know off the top of my head because I haven't checked.
Well, they have like 8% of
let's say $1 billion. I have no idea. I haven't looked at it. Okay, is there an incentive factor there from the OA to create an extra $1 billion on 3 chains?
Literally what I said the other day. It was like,
Sure.
why would I fucking
Sure.
shoot myself? Why would I do that?
Right. And also think of it this way. We don't want a situation where we're talking out of both sides of our mouth either, right? So first off, open source thing, that just prevents somebody else from copying it and creating their own version. The ownership rights still remain with the same wallet addresses on both chains. So in the event of a fork, it's quite different. You're not actually copying. You're not stealing something away. You're not stealing the property from another person because they still own that property. All right. Now, if he were to do that, what does that say about Pulsechain? Because he's literally doing the exact same thing on thousands upon thousands upon thousands of other tokens. So would we want to see all those projects just nuke everything, send everything to zero? Vitalik say, wait a minute, let me nuke all the ETH because I didn't give you the right to copy it. It is open source, but still, we can't talk out of both sides of our mouth. And the most important thing through these forks is the adoption, letting people see that Hex is a cool asset, that we've got a great community that likes to educate people. And oh, by the way, you've got some bags over there. They're copied over, cool. And as long as the chains live, and maybe ETHFair or ETHPOW do fabulous numbers, and that just raises the value of the copies that you have over there. Like, everybody ends up winning. Why would you nuke that? Why would you piss people off, nuke those bags, and like just destroy all that value, make the chart look like shit? Okay, so everybody can laugh at the chart of Hex. Look, Hex fails because the OA decides to nuke everything. It doesn't make any sense. He's not going to do it.
So really quick, let's just watch this. I think I've watched a lot of Richard Hart streams from back in the day, so I knew clearly what he thought about hex on multiple chains because he said it many a time. But many people don't actually listen. They just like to hear when what he's watching and what he's looking at and what funny things he has to say. But he told us all this very intimately. But just because the verbiage was not exact, because these things were not out yet, that's the only difference. You have to read between the lines. Let's listen to this about
I want
parity.
expensive hex on all chains.
And that's not this line, but this one is similar because we watched that one already. But this one is similar, but just put the different chains. Just listen. It's a good one.
So I think what you're trying. So basically, what he was trying to state without this dissertation for me was, is it a chance that P hex becomes more valuable than E hex? The hex on the Pulse network, could it become more valuable than the Pulse on the Ethereum network? And the answer is sure it could. And personally, I prefer to see hex more expensive everywhere. But if personally, I prefer to see this network, could it become more valuable than the Pulse on the Ethereum network? And the answer is sure it could. And personally, I prefer to see hex more expensive everywhere. But if the Pulse network has lower fees,
I'll pull myself up for a second. Stop being freaking stupid, guys. The man already told us what he thinks. The man already explained to us layer one technology. The man already explained to us what users want, cheap fees. He already explained to us Metcalfe's law. He already explained to us why these things go up in price. So fucking listen. Just fucking listen. And you don't have to listen to everything he says. Obviously, he's talking about a bunch of stuff that wasn't exactly verbatim at the time. But my God, guys, I'm going to listen to it one more time, and then we're going to wrap it up.
more becomes more valuable in work where there's have this peg enforced, and there is no such thing. So it's just dumb to talk about. Maybe what you want to talk about is network effect. So Metcalfe's law, where the utility of a thing is in proportion to the square of the number of participants in a network where there's communication, like a fax machine network or cryptocurrency network where you have to have a wallet to participate. In those types of networks, Metcalfe's law can be useful. So I think what you're trying. So basically, what he was trying to state without this dissertation for me was, is it a chance that P hex becomes more valuable than E hex? The hex on the Pulse network, could it become more valuable than the Pulse on the Ethereum network? And the answer is sure it could. And personally, I prefer to see hex more expensive everywhere. But if the Pulse network has lower fees and has higher throughput and is more enjoyable to use, not so long ago, maybe a week or two ago, it may have cost you $100 or $150 to send an ERC20 on Ethereum. It may have cost you $300 to do a swap. Well, that's unacceptable. So in an environment like that, I would expect P hex to be a lot more valuable than.
Okay, boy, rewind that back a minute, just a second there. You hit another extremely valuable piece of information that I think people just skipped over. Regarding networks, the same as a fax machine, have value. Well, why does a fax machine network have value? Because everybody has a fax machine, right? So what if everybody, instead of having a fax machine, which makes that network valuable, had a node? And with that node, it brought on all the peer-to-peer functions and easeability that the fax machine brought. You want more peer-to-peer trading? You want to create fucking private payment rails that you can trade peer-to-peer? Over-the-counter trading desks so you can buy large volumes of freaking tokens without even being on the price because they're stored permanently on the side chain for peer-to-peer trading? Is that not positive price action? Because the tokens are removed from supply off the mainnet and supplied on a second chain? Huh? So if the network effect of value of the network effect has value with a fax machine because of the convenience factor it brings for everybody, so would supplying a node to everybody else.
I agree. We were having this conversation, 2 or 3 months ago? You had some very interesting ideas. And I would like to see something like that potentially play out into the future as more and more people come into crypto. I think that the nodes and the number of people who run them is
If
definitely
stable coins like USDC, USDT might not.
Sorry, I was just finding another spot.
You're good.
He has a little bit of a tidbit on stablecoins on Pulsechain, and I think it could be good because people don't understand what stablecoins do. They don't understand how they affect. In my opinion, and this is my opinion, I don't really know this all the way, but from what I've seen, stablecoin, like Richard Hart owned no stablecoins up until 2 years ago, and that's only because it just became like everyone used it, so it was the easier way to do it. But it's not necessarily necessary. That's the whole point. It's not always necessary, at least at the beginning. Like there's a lot of factors to that, but just understand this is a point that I've been studying a lot, and I'm going to continue studying the stablecoin logic because I think people are ass backwards on it, frankly.
They are ass backwards.
Not necessary. And listen, I'm extremely biased on this. It's not
Well,
necessary.
I want to use it though. I want to use it for loans and leverage.
They do serve a useful function and purpose, and people like them. And many people would argue that they need them for their personal strategies.
True. And
to decorrelate things, right? Look, what's really cool about this hex on ETH Fair, if ETH Fair does a 200x and its pairing ratio stays the same with ETH Fair, guess what? Your hex just did a 200x with it.
Yep.
Now, if it was paired to a stable coin that has a good peg and redemption mechanism and stuff, and that is not one of the weird Ponzi stables, but a solid stable, you have the ability to decorrelate from being, which could be not as advantageous for you during a bull market, but it could help save your coin and retain some value in it during a bear market. Like, correct. There are purposes for these things to exist.
It's a trade-off.
Yeah, but the whole thing is native stable coins because you really can't fork value like that. You can't just fork, oh, okay, everyone has thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars of USDC on the other side. So then we become, how flexible are these native stable coins in the future in a year? Does every chain have an automatic? Is that easy money back in? But now obviously it's still something that's up for debate, up for grabs. But we've never seen something like liquid loans yet, in my opinion, that or at least I haven't. Like, I know it exists and I know some people use it, but I haven't seen what it can do from a zero valuation into an ecosystem that already has finances tied into it due to sacrifice phase and such. So there's a lot of factors.
Even from a logical freaking sense here for a second, like let's say, could you imagine the chaos that would freaking happen on these two chains if they did turn on the admin keys for those stable coins and they pegged to $1? These markets would go nuts and people would make trillions of dollars overnight. Trillions and trillions of dollars overnight. You know what I mean? And that would be actually worse for the US economy dollar, honestly, because you guys, everybody around the world's already complaining about freaking inflation going on. Do you really think that would make the world a better place if they just turned on trillions of dollars and all of a sudden that extra capital happened to it just got flooded into the ecosystem, into the world?
No, that would be dangerous, right?
It'd be extremely dangerous and extremely irresponsible.
The thing that actually makes stablecoins work is if there's a redemption mechanism and a collateral or an asset that's held that's backing the value of that stable. Now, we all hope that USDC has all the fiat backing for each one of those, right? We all hope that USDT, although they don't show us all their books, has the backing for all of that, right? Maybe there's some fractionally reserved assets in there that starts to get dangerous. In the case of DAI, look, all the ETH value is backing all the DAI. In the case of Liquidity, all the LUSD, it's all completely backed by ETH, by the value of ETH. Now, when you copy something over on a fork, all of that completely breaks and the backing no longer exists. If you tried to peg it back to $1, like, there's literally nothing. There's no value you can get out of them. It's impossible. Stable coins that are forked over absolutely have to go to zero. Otherwise, you break the whole chain.
But in all fairness, we have to be absolutely realistic, okay? There's nothing that is being backed by anything now. What's backing the US dollar? Nothing. What's backing the Chinese yuan? Nothing.
You have a point.
Okay, what's backing okay, let's go buy paper, gold, and silver. It's paper silver is rehypothecated at a rate of 400 to 1. There's 400 paper contracts for every 1 ounce of silver. Nothing in the, no offense, but nothing is backed by anything in the financial markets. Right?
But it's all about what
Nothing.
it's redeemable back for, right? And people understand that a dollar, you can exchange it for some sort of good or service somewhere in the world, regardless if it's backed, how the government prints or makes it. You still have a good understanding of, okay, my $3 here, I can go and I can buy a pack of bubble gum for that. Okay, there is some sort of value exchangeable in a dollar, even though you don't understand or even necessarily need to know how that backing or where that value comes from. The
So that's where
redeemability of
I
an asset
disagree.
is the most important part.
Okay, but I just want to be clear so we're talking apples to apples. You know what I mean? So the concept I have with the language of the dollar has value is incorrect in my opinion. And I think if people can get this concept through their head, they can understand financial markets better and their financial future better. Because a dollar does not have value. Okay, a dollar is a piece of money. It's a medium of exchange for a product or service of value. Okay, so when the very first concept of anything, okay, you have a pack of cigarettes and I want a pack of cigarettes. We then negotiate on that price, whether it's dollars, seashells, feathers, gold, silver, crypto, whatever the case may be. The final transaction or the final thing to happen in that process is a medium of exchange of those dollars or goods and services thereof. But the dollar itself does not have value. It's a medium of exchange to facilitate transfer of value. Does that make sense? Because the value is the asset itself, the house, the commodity,
or the service,
the fish, the service. That is the value, okay? But people get misconcepted and they focus on dollars that have value. But if you just chase dollars, you will lose value because dollars lose value over time. Okay? So if you're just focusing on dollars, you will become poorer and poorer and poorer and poorer.
I agree. But crypto, hopefully the good cryptos you're in offset that, right? And
but you're taking those dollars and you're doing a medium of exchange for another tangible asset to go up in appreciation.
So, but this is also why there's a difference
of value. There's a difference of this. Sorry, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I just want people to get around their head the difference between values and assets, right? And I think for the average person, the majority of people, because I have this conversation with many people all the time, especially in Latin America, they focus on dollars. They just focus on chasing money, and people in the U.S. and Canada and everywhere else, they chase dollars. But the byproduct of dollars is that asset or tangible service, right? So if you build a house and then you sell that house, the byproduct of that transaction is dollars. And if people just focused on the goods and service value asset by creating new things, the byproduct of that will be dollars, right? Like you guys create a channel, you create a goods and service by providing a service, and there's some part of that service, the byproduct of this service brings you in dollars. See what I'm saying?
Here's what stable coins do though. Look, they allow you to translate the value that you've accumulated in crypto into a medium of exchange that you understand. Now, it's also a very closed loop system. Crypto is completely closed loop. Look, people have to bring in those dollars, get translated into coins. People run around like little Pac-Man and eat as many as they can and hope the ones they have go up the most in value. And then they translate those coins back into dollars and hope they come out with more on the other end, so that they can exchange those for more goods and services than they originally were able to.
Right, but the
stable coins facilitate that.
They do. They stabilize the market. But my thing is, you've bought an asset. That asset has gone up in value, right? And then you've transferred that asset through a medium of exchange back to dollars. You see what I'm saying? But the value proposition is not in the dollars itself. The value proposition is in the asset itself. And I think people need to decorrelate that value narrative in their mind between what is an asset, right? And what is a true dollar.
On what you're saying, right? So to Jesse's point, I think is what he was trying to say is that it's almost if you have an asset, right, that we're defining as a crypto here, that is not something that's pegged, right? And you choose to switch that to a medium of exchange, which you're saying right here, you're saying that doesn't have like the value in the same way that the crypto has the value, but the idea behind that is that this is the hedge to the downside. So it's a put. You're effectively able to buy a put for the cost of holding the medium of exchange, which you know is going to go down in value relative to something else, right?
What I'm trying to do, if you get that, what I'm trying to do is separate the two in people's minds, because if you can
separate which two pieces,
dollars and value, right? Because people think that dollars have value, but that's a backwards narrative. And if your objective is to make more money, to become independently wealthy, to buy back more time, that is your long-term objective, okay? Then you need to separate the two and understand the two. Because if you just had $20,000 and you threw it into a bank account, right now, over the last year, you're losing 8% a month. Every month, that dollar for dollar buying power via inflation has gone down by 8%. So you've lost your purchasing power, which is dollar for dollar buying power. And the dollar for dollar buying power is the only thing that matters, which is the purchasing power for you to buy goods and services or tangible assets. So if it's going down, the value of the social value proposition of that is going down. It has no value. Okay. So you got to create value propositions, which are assets and goods and services, right?
So then from your
dollars are just
thesis,
medium exchanges.
So your thesis, though, because it sounds like it's similar to what I have, that I don't think that they're going to, in the long run, whether that long run be 36 months or 74 months, right? I don't necessarily see having stable coins in the current form pegged to a dying carcass as being something that is
okay. But let's say you hold
crypto.
stable coins and they're pegged to a US dollar. Okay, so you're into an asset, you move out of that asset into a stable coin, a USDT or USDT, right? Okay, well, the second you move into that, the longer you hold that USDT or USDC loses purchasing power because it's pegged to the dollar. You're losing purchasing power when you hold it because it's pegged to the US dollar. So if inflation affects the US dollar for your goods and services in which you buy, you have to factor in the time and the 8% devaluation on that same product as the US dollar. Because it's pegged to the dollar.
You got to put all these into the same basket, right? Because then if you're talking about products and services, right, where that's where the value is, get that completely.
Right, because at some
that,
point you're going to go buy food, or you're going to go buy a car, or you're going to go buy a property, or whatever. Whether it's in USDC or USDT or US dollars, it's basically equal, right? And how much has inflation gone up in the US every month for the last 3 months, 4 months?
So but there's another basket there, right?
There is no other basket.
The other basket is crypto, right?
But you have to do a medium of exchange into that asset in order to gain, right? You have to move a medium of exchange into another asset in order to have the price appreciation, right?
Correct.
See what I'm saying?
But that's the thing. The in how I'm seeing crypto stables as just a hedge in a certain market, right? So the value in that is you're pegged to something that we all know is going to go down in value. Look at the last fucking 100 years. We know this thing.
It's lost 98% of its value in fucking 80 years. Cafe.
During a time where you have the differential, right, where you have crypto assets, we're separating this out, right? We're saying stable coins, and then we're saying crypto assets that hopefully appreciate.
So
those are down 80%.
Only reason I bring this up is for wealth preservation. You know what I'm saying? People want to, as things have changed. The whole thing is that the world has changed, right? And the the exponential curve of inflation or the devaluation of the US dollar has increased exponentially over the last few years, since basically 2019. Well, basically since the GFC, to 2018, 2017, 2018. The rate of devaluation of that dollar, and everybody can feel it. Everybody can feel that devaluation from 2018 because people have to work harder, they're buying less product, they're buying less food, and it's being devalued twice because not only did the purchasing power to get devalued by the dollar, the amount of food that you buy has become less and less because a pound of bacon used to be a pound. Now it's like you can't even feed one person off a package of bacon, right? So you've gotten double devalued, okay? Because the product, the goods and services of the product that you got, the amount of product you got has gone down, and the purchasing power of that has gone down. So it now costs you $5, this is the argument sake, for a so-called pound of bacon, right? Which used to be a pound. Well, it's no longer a pound, and it used to be like 67 cents, and now it's $5. So you got double devalued. This is where people are getting eroded. And I say the same thing with their housing. Everybody seems to think that their housing price is going up. But if you actually do the math on that and factor the amount of inflation in the system, the dollar for dollar purchasing power that hasn't changed. It's equal.
But that you're saying the same thing. So, right. So say we're talking about sloshing back and forth between chains, right? You have a 14x over here. This other thing has some abnormal thing happen, and there's a sell-off of some sort, and taking a portion, switching it over here. The quantity of tokens has increased, right? You bought it at a dip. Now that same philosophy is exactly how I see stablecoins. The only why you're going to hold those things is you're in a bull market. You know, at some point there's a decent chance to have a 75% sell-off in one, if not all, of the assets that you hold, assets being crypto that is not stable. They're going to have a 75% drop-off. And in that environment, what you're describing is exactly true. You have the increase in the medium exchange in value because its value is a put on the market, right? You're effectively having a put on the market because it's gaining in value relative to everything else coming down in value. And you're able to take that, which you did on your bull run, pull off a little bit if that's your prerogative, and you built this stable coin that works as a hedge, as a put. It has a cost to it because this goes down in time. But if you know anything about puts, you know that there's a cost to a put. It's effectively insurance. So this cost to the put is this inflationary thing that always goes down in value, right? So the cost of doing that. But when you factor that into that 90% drops, you can get, go ahead.
Look, crypto is super simple. Look, you use your medium of exchange, which is dollars. The value for that flows into these imaginary things we call coins. Okay? You scoop up as many as you can, and that value eventually is comes out the other end, and you hope to come out with more dollars or dollar value than you started with.
Right.
Okay? Now, you can keep some of that value in coins, and you can hold through the dips, the 98% dips and all the volatility and stuff. But the only reason crypto even has value to begin with is because people have brought their dollars in, and people are certainly taking dollars out because that's what people understand, and that's what people use as a medium of exchange. And crypto can only be as valuable as the thing that's brought in on the front side.
Right. And that's
your only goal is to scoop up as much of that value as you can, and you're going to turn some of that into dollars so you can buy your house, you can pay your bills, and you can do this and do that. And there will be people that are disadvantaged over you because of the quantity of coins or whatever that you manage to scoop up at the right times, but it's still like a zero-sum game. You can only get out what was brought in.
Well, that's not true. Because let's bring us back to the original math equation.
Unless people start accepting crypto.
I'm trying to break this down
medium
for
of exchange.
Everybody to get rich. You know what I mean? Because everybody in these ecosystems are trying to get in to become rich and everything else, right? So I'm just trying to bring it down to a common denominator to understand the three basic things, right? You have a medium of exchange, you have your asset, and you have time. It's no different. It's just a different math equation getting to the same outcome. We're solving for X. Okay. So if your same math equation equals dollar per hour times the quantity of time per week equals X. Okay. Let's punch in the same thing into that same math equation, understanding the value proposition of your medium of exchange, okay, and your asset. And then what we got? What's the other common denominator in our 3-person math equation? Function of time. So if we do the exact same math equation as everybody going to work to get $1 per hour to equal X, right? You invest your money into the ecosystem, you invest your money into that asset, and then you calculate time. And if you do basically like Jesse said, put your money in, do nothing over a period of time, you will reach X just based on the compound function. And we've proven that with Metcalfe's law, right? So I'm just saying, let's just change the math equation just a little bit, use the same formula in a different way, but understand the difference between going to work and trading your knowledge and time, and for a number of hours per week at a job to equal X, but just say, instead of take that and put it into a financial asset where your money is doing the same thing, the byproduct will be same, but actually it will be faster.
Much faster. I got to run. Frosty, this has been fucking awesome. Jesse, this has been awesome. I got another call that's right now.
Jump off, Sam. I'm going to wrap
Appreciate
up.
you guys.
Have a great one, man.
Anyway, I'm sorry. You cut me off.
No, I'm sorry. Peace out, guys.
Peace out.
Yeah. And all I'm trying to do is just, I'm not talking about us or anybody else. I'm just trying to offer some perspective.
Can I give an example, though? Can I give an example? Look.
Absolutely.
Let's say $5 gets you a pack of cigarettes.
Yep.
Okay. Now, however many Bitcoin in the early days of Bitcoin potentially could also maybe get you a pack of cigarettes. But watch this. Watch this.
Exactly.
You've got a guy who has some Bitcoin for sale. You have another guy who's got $5 and he decides to put it into Bitcoin. He puts that $5 into Bitcoin. It slips the price enough, and the market maker is able to get that $5 out and go buy a pack of cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same money that comes in is the same money that comes out of the other end. It's just a matter of who accumulates the most of it. This game of crypto is literally a game of coin count. Scoop up as many as you possibly can in the right ones.
Yep.
It's a game of Pac-Man.
Yep.
Come out the other end with the most dollar value, which is maybe the dollar is losing value, purchasing power. Yes, I think a lot of us understand that, but it is the medium of exchange that we all understand. Come out the other end with more of them.
But the same is true for any asset. If you scoop up the most real estate, you're scooping up the most real estate. You scoop up the most bonds. You scoop up the most treasuries. You scoop up the most physical gold. You scoop up the most silver. It's the same. It's the same on all of them. It's the same strategy on all of them.
If they're active in any way and they add more users, you just scoop up early, and that's what I try to show everyone. I was like, that's why I was on Hedron. That's why I was on these chains. It had nothing to do that I knew the landscape of the future yet. I didn't care about that yet, but I only had to spend $500 and I got 10 million or whatever it is. So it's like I knew that already ahead of time. I could speculate $500, guys. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, if you can't speculate $500 at any point in time, probably not your time yet to be in crypto, because you have to be able to speculate and buy at some point.
And that's what I like about mining, because mining accumulates tokens. You know what I mean? And yes, right now, and it was no different when I was mining, I was losing money every month on electricity costs. But the difference is I was doing exactly what Jesse said. I was just using it as another form to accumulate tokens, and I just never sold them. And eventually, the gains of that token, even though it was Ethereum and Ethereum Classic, that Ethereum Classic even went up more than enough to offset whatever electricity costs I spent.
70 cents to like, yeah, it was at like 380 at least, you know, so it's definitely held 5x its initial, and I don't know how the initial supply was kind of given out. I'm sure it was.
Well, so back in the day, we were mining nine Ethereum every day for like under $15 at a loss, at a huge loss. The hydro costs were thousands of dollars a month, and we were mining nowhere near that. But when it hit freaking $2,000, did I lose money? No, because we were accumulating tokens, and that same principle
Well, you
is
weren't
true today.
wrecked. If you're a miner and you're wrecked, you're wrecked. That's it. Like you can't be a wrecked miner, really, from zero. If you just want to be like, hey, I'm going to start making money only mining. This is all I'm doing, and I have no money to start. You're going to be.
But the common denominator is time. How long did that guy have to buy that Bitcoin and hold it? 12 years. He had to buy that Bitcoin for $5, like Jesse said, and he had to hold it for 12 years. And that's what I held mine. I've been
But
in
you
it
used it as an investment. Let's listen to this right before we go. This is classic.
With the same exact code, the same exact coin is worth more than the higher fee, slower network, then you might see a higher value on PHEX than EHEX. The market has to decide it. My personal preference is that I don't want to see cheap hex anywhere. I prefer to see hex expensive everywhere because it just feels better. Like when I wake up and hex.
Wait, so I have to wait for Richard for weeks and weeks and weeks when these assets have no valuation to make an investment? Whoops, no, I don't. I actually don't. I can actually just learn this stuff when he actually said it back in the day, and I did learn it. And that's why I actually was paying attention like a student, not like someone who knows what the fuck's going on, like a student, because that's what I'm doing. That's why I only listen to guys like that have been in the system for 8 to 10 years generally, because they're the only guys that really.
GymRat, Richard didn't tell me that it was okay. He didn't endorse it. He didn't tell me to go buy it over there.
Yeah, because Richard doesn't want to be responsible for all you wrecked plebs. Like, why would he want to say something he knows that you putting money into anything is you getting wrecked for 90% of the people that are watching him. And because that's every subgroup, though. Every subgroup. Go to any country, 90% of the people wrecked. There's levels to that wreckedness, but generally the people in the third world countries, at least they appreciate the Lord and like their lives and like the things that are going on in time with their families. Like they appreciate time with their families. Imagine that. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But.
Making a new all-time high, I have a better day. If I wake up and there's a dip, I have a worse day. So for my own emotional health, I prefer expensive hex all over the place. Look, no one knows. This has never been done before. This is the first time in the world that there's been 10,000 new coins birthed into existence with who knows how many trading pairs. I mean, there could be 30, 40,000 trading pairs. So good luck, coin ranking sites. Have fun. I just doubled your workload. Enjoy it.
Yeah, I guess the argument.
They got their workload doubled, but not by this man quite yet. And that's okay, guys. Everyone's allowed. He's the one who said software takes forever for everyone. He made that popular. And then you watch guys like Vitalik and they say the same fucking thing. They say this shit is complicated, guys. Like you got to make sure it's right. It's immutable code. It's very hard to be on time. And they're just telling you the same thing. But some people make stuff fucking happen. Did Coffee really block you? Yeah, Coffee. Well, I would have blocked you too if I was Coffee. You're on his ass. Let's listen to one more minute and then we'll just wrap it up.
Your favor as well is the fact that even to this day, Bitcoin Cash and BSV and probably even Bitcoin Diamond, they still have a value. They can still be traded.
Hey, look, Bitcoin Cash is supported for sacrifice, and people only put in like 100K. And then one day I look at the watch only wallet and it says 1.7 million. So now there's already been $1.7 million of Bitcoin Cash sacrificed, and we see this on all types of different chains. Now there's 2 chains I can't even check because I don't feel like fighting the wallet DAT and injecting all the pub keys in order to watch it because they don't support HD wallets. So it's kind of a nightmare. Apparently, one of our devs has already kind of cracked that for Dogecoin. It hasn't cracked it for LTC yet because they're still syncing their node. But because you have to run it on a full node. You don't have to, but you really, really should. I'm not even sure how much is donated on this. So, yeah, like there's real millions of dollars in all.
Aren't you guys happy you got some of that money out of that Bitcoin Cash and all of those random altcoins that had way, way, way inflated valuations at the time, and you put them into something where someone's actually working really hard? I say I am. I don't over leverage into stuff. So even back then, I didn't over leverage. I think I spent like $3,500 or something, or like $5,000 on all the sacrifices. I think on both of them. I mean. And, or I don't know exactly what it was. I can't remember. But the price of the hex that I was sacrificing was extremely inflated from the degree it was at now. And thank God I got some of that off the table at the time where there was actually value associated with it. You know what I mean? It was really important time for me, and that was a long time ago, and I haven't seen anything from that. And I'm certainly happy that it occurred. I am certainly happy that that sacrifice occurred, and I certainly think RH is a heavy hitter himself, and I think he's going to really have some treats for us down the line. I'm not going to tell you whether that's next week. We're early, guys. We're really, 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 really early. We got guys, you know, it's important to know that we're early. There's like 5 guys in the space that have enough money and enough influence to really do anything. And then there's a bunch of guys underneath of them making money from all these amazing products that have come out. So it's complicated, but guys, I think the future's very bright for crypto and DeFi. I really do, personally. I can't stop thinking that way. It just seems too good. It seems too efficient. It's too cheap. It's too amazing. And the only thing good about the blockchain is really like this security aspect of it, right? Or the censorship resistance aspect of it. Is that the only reason we're really using this stuff? Pretty much, right? Like, I think it's just like censorship resistance, because I'm pretty sure the systems that the banks use and stuff like are way quicker and kind of more, you know, better. But anyway, guys, we've been talking for 2 hours and it's been an absolute delight. I think everyone in the chat, biceps in the chat, if you've enjoyed this so far, smash the like button, guys. Do you guys have any closing words for the people before we go? I'm going to continue to relay this message as the days go on. So
keep up the great work, man. You guys, you and Bullish and Sam or whatever, you guys are punching through the narrative and really trying to help people. You know what I mean? So I give you guys props for that. Keep it up. You guys, in my opinion, are 100% right. The best time to buy is when the asset is low with no liquidity. And I think everybody has an amazing opportunity right now. So it's take it, you know, do what you want to do. I know all I know is I know what I'm doing.
and yeah, and you know, nobody needs to know the amount of money everyone's throwing. It really doesn't matter. It depends on the consensus of the community, because the smart guys know what's going on and they're ready. And there's some of them have a lot of money. So if
all I can say is if you guys are upset and you just got a free copy of your bag for nothing and you're the one complaining about it, then you really need to re-educate yourself.
You're wrecked. That's called moving like a pleb 101. Like, oh, I got free coins, but it's not from RH's butthole, so I don't want them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want the free value. I made 3 times my initial value already, and it wasn't that. Granted, the USD amount wasn't that much, and that's not really the point. Anyone could have done that with any amount of money. You could have done
even
that.
if it's a dollar, and it's a dollar that you got for free that you didn't have to work for. You know what I mean? Like, put that dollar to work to make more dollars, to make more dollars. You know what I mean? Use your mind.
Jesse, you got any closing words for the people in a narrative as we go forward, that I can continue positive narrative, that we can continue to show the new users? Because I'm here for the new users.
The best time to get into something is early, when liquidity is the lowest. All that's true. The last thing I would have wanted to do is like miss a great asset like Hex, you know, early on. And you've got free stuff over there. Right, so it literally makes no sense to FUD it when it's brand new and like 5 days or a week old or whatever. It literally makes no sense.
Jesse, you can't sell. There's no liquidity. It's 3 days old. You ding dongs.
You know what's funny about that narrative? The liquidity was there when the IOUs were being sold for the ETH Faircoin on the exchanges, and the moment it went live, there was liquidity.
Exactly.
Hey, CoinGecko listed ETF too, guys. That's bearish, I heard. No, it's not. It's bullish. More people figuring this stuff out. Very low valuation. There's guys with lots of money that are ready, waiting to buy the native asset. And let's see, you know, there's a lot of, you know, I'm glad there's a lot of speculatory nature on the native asset in the fair launch that it had, starting at a very low valuation. You know what I mean? So guys could get in on that. And you saw that on the price chart. It went 360 and then it stayed at the 300% mark and just hold sideways on that, because everyone knows that. They're all sketch.
Why everybody's volatility, people should be happy about volatility, not upset about volatility. Volatility is the price you pay for fucking exponential gains, right? There's a risk reward ratio. If you want a stable, no volatility, no risk, go get another asset. But if you want exponential gains, the price for those gains is volatility. So not only is the gains for that, if you can actually understand ratios, you know what I mean? Then that volatility you would welcome. I'm not going to complain. It went up 2,000%. It basically dropped 2,000%, and I get to buy the same subs. That 2,000% gain,
Yeah,
and
but you
all
actually
the
have
tokens back.
money on the sideline, so you can actually participate because you're not perma-racked. Because when you never, like you were kind of explaining to people before, if you never get ahead, you can never be a player. And at some point, you have to sacrifice yourself or something, something to get ahead in life. And it's time. Now it's time because things move so quick that you don't have to hit the hammer against the wall to earn the piggy bank money anymore. You just have to buy the right thing and sit on your ass. But the sitting on your ass part can be complicated because a lot of these guys are brainwashed by plebbery, frankly, because that's generally what is spewed on the internet.
Knowledge is
Because
power.
even the
And
Richard
power is
Hart
money.
maxis don't listen to Richard Hart. Like Richard Hart has, when all this stuff came out, I was like, thanks, Richard, for telling me what was going on already, because no one else did on the internet. Super sticker, Sir Edward 6. Thank you for the super sticker. I appreciate your support. And we're going to close it up right after this last point from Frosty.
The best knowledge I ever gotten given to me in my life years and years and years ago was knowledge is power and power is money, right? And knowledge is free if you're willing to obtain it. And you guys are all out giving out free information by the boatloads. Just learn it. Just learn it.
And day one, we were here day one when they were connecting the first dApps. We were showing people like, this is the dApp. This is what the coder's trying to get done right now. This is what we're waiting for. This is why markets take time. This is why it's better to get in now, because other people don't know how. Other people don't know the dApp. They don't know the link. And you know what they do? They get drunk and then they go on Twitter and then they start talking shit because they don't. And all it does to me is say, okay, this guy doesn't know what's going on. This guy doesn't know what's going on. I'm going to put them on mute. I'm not going to block them. I'm not going to be a crazy guy, but I'm going to mute the guys that are generally just, they'll be there in a couple months and they'll buy my backs and it'll be great.
Knowledge is power, power is money, and knowledge is free.
And everyone have an amazing day. Jesse, Frosty, what an incredible, incredible show. I've enjoyed every second of it. Have an amazing day.
Cheers.
See ya.
You already know what time it is.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Waiting on phones.
Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning.
Ready to take notes.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Crypto in the morning.
Waiting on phones.
Crypto in the morning. Crypto in the morning.
Ready to take notes.
Smoking a blunt on my way to the gym. 11 a.m. and I'm already tuned in. Got me some hacks and I'm making a stake. Got me some hedron, I'm making it rain. Pay me some maxi and that's just in case. GymRatCrypto sent me to show you the way.